Let me start with a few announcements. The first being that following this briefing, there will be a backgrounder on the from a senior Air Force officer to update you on the process that we're going through in the investigation of the aircraft crash in Croatia. We'll do these from time to time when it's appropriate, and today seemed like a good time to do an update for you. Some additional information, which all of this, by the way, is included in blue tops that will be available as you depart the room today. The President has nominated Lieutenant General Daniel W. Chrisman, United States Army, for assignment as Superintendent, U.S. Military Academy, West Point, New York. General Chrisman has served as Assistant to the Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff since October 1994. He will replace Army Lieutenant General Howard D. Graves, who will retire after the completion of more than 34 years of service. General Graves has served as Superintendent at West Point since July 1991. The Air Force is proud to announce today that Colonel Betty Mullis, United States Air Force Reserve, will assume command of the 940th Air Refueling Wing, McClellan Air Force Base, California, next month. Colonel Mullis, a KC-135 pilot with more than 5,000 flying hours, is the military's first woman commander of a flying wing. She'll be here in the Pentagon tomorrow morning. Anybody interested in talking with her should call Lieutenant Colonel Rob Kaufman at 697-1761. The final elements of the U.S. contingent of the United Nations mission in Haiti will return to their home stations when 74 personnel depart Port-au-Prince tomorrow. More than 250 U.S. personnel will remain in country as part of an ongoing bilateral humanitarian and civic assistance training mission under the command of the United States Support Group Haiti. We'll have a blue top, as I mentioned before, that has a lot more detail on that. The U.S. Atlantic Command is going to be conducting a major joint exercise with British forces on military installations in the southeastern United States and waters along the eastern seaboard from the 25th of April to May 20th. More than 53,000 military service members from the United States and the United Kingdom will participate in Combined Joint Task Force Exercise 96, or Exercise Purple Star. There are a lot more details in our release, which is going out this afternoon. And if you're interested in covering any aspect of this major exercise, please contact the Atlantic Command Public Affairs Office at area code 804-322-6552. And finally, I'd like to announce plans to award $20.7 million to 74 academic institutions for the purchase of research equipment. These grants are part of an ongoing program to seek the benefits of research, of the research base provided by our universities and colleges. The 131 programs selected from more than 500 proposals will conduct research in selected areas of importance to the Department of Defense. The awards are expected to range from $44,000 to $570,000 following negotiations between DoD research offices and the institutions. And again, more information in a blue top that is available after this brief. And now I'm ready for your questions.
Captain, to what extent is the United States concerned about an underground facility that Russia is building in the Ural Mountains?
Jamie, first of all, I'd like to point out that we're aware of this facility and have been for some time. It's been under development for many years. It has been written about on several occasions in the Russian press in recent years. For the most part, those reports describe an activity of several thousand workers, complete with housing, evidently including an extensive rail and road network that supports the system, and it appears to be defense-related.
Can you tell us is there an estimate of what this facility is or intended to be?
Although we have discussed the facility with the Russians at this point have not disclosed the purposes of the facility, but we're continuing to watch it closely.
Do you have any of your own intelligence assessments what it could be?
At this point, it is unclear, except to say that it is defense-related. It appears to be defense-related.
When you discuss it with the Russians, what did they tell you?
They have not provided at this point any kind of description of exactly what this facility is.
Did they refuse to talk to you about it?
We have engaged them in conversations on this subject, but we, at this point, have not heard from them any details as to what this facility is. Yes, Charlie?
Mike, by defense-related, do you mean a military facility or to be used only for defense? Or?
Charlie, at this point, I think as much as I should say from what we know is that it appears to be defense-related. Now, I must say that the Russian press has reported on the facility, and for the most part, we have no reason to dispute what the Russians have reported regarding the facility.
Well, by defense-related, you mean it's not to be used for offensive purposes against the United States or against any other country?
I can't characterize it to that extent.
Well, the
I think
Russians,
what Charlie's trying to get at is by defense, do you mean military, or by defense, do you mean defensive as opposed to offensive?
No, I mean military.
what is the Russian?
And military in a very, very broad sense.
Would it be fair to say that the Pentagon doesn't know what this complex is?
It would be fair to say that the Russians have not told the Pentagon what this complex is.
What does the Russian press say it is?
Well, I think I would refer you directly to the Russian press for details beyond those that I've already provided, which is, one, several thousand workers seem to be employed there, housing complex, extensive road and railroad network that appears to be supportive of the installation, and the fact that it is large. Some describe it as being vast in size.
Would this be in violation of understandings that the United States has received from the Russians in exchange for our participation in the non-Luger program?
Well, we know that the Russians, like we, are engaged in some military modernization programs. And we certainly believe that they have the right to do that, as do we.
I'm sorry.
Do you expect this to be raised when the president is in Moscow?
Can't predict.
Is it the facility itself or the secrecy that apparently surrounds it that's the major cause of concern to the Pentagon?
First of all, I'm not sure that I would attach the word concern to this. It is certainly a site that has been observed by the Pentagon and others for some period of time, but I am not sure that I would attach the word concern to it at this juncture.
Can you say how long that period of time is that we've known about?
More than 10 years.
Could you check and see if various agencies could provide some line art diagrams of this facility?
And the latitude and longitude?
Coordinates. And the latitude and longitude.
I will see if there is any capability or desire to do that.
Mike, you haven't said whether or not it's is it apparently an underground facility that's being built?
It is in the Ural Mountains, and certainly a large portion of it is underground.
Does it appear to be affiliated with one of the specific services, like the Strategic Rocket
I
Force?
think it is much broader than a specific service.
Sticking with underground facilities, can we switch to Libya for a moment? Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi once again asserted yesterday that the facility at Tarhuna is in fact some sort of desert irrigation project. Does the Pentagon have any reaction to his comments yesterday?
I think that others in the government have described his comment as weird, and I think that might be an appropriate description.
If Gaddafi offers an independent tour or inspection or international tour of inspection of this facility, would the United States be willing to participate or in any way take part in such an inspection?
First of all, I don't want to speculate on that part of it. I do want to point out, however, that Libya is one of the few nations in the last decade to have employed chemical weapons, having dropped chemical agents from transport aircraft against Chadian troops in 1987.
And just finally, can you comment on whether or not the Pentagon has the military, U.S. military has the capability of taking out that facility, which is also buried deep in a mountainside?
I think I'll leave it exactly where Dr. Perry left it the last time he discussed this issue.
Thank you.
Do you have any comment on the research report out of Duke University on the chemicals used in the Gulf War?
Well, that's an interesting report, and certainly we're very anxious to get together with Dr. Haley, who is leading that research effort, to hear firsthand of his preliminary findings. We here in the department, and certainly in the Department of Veterans Affairs, are interested in that project. We have for a long time welcomed any kind of assistance from outside agencies to help unravel the causes of the illnesses which afflict our Gulf War veterans. The one thing I would say, though, that his research was independently funded, and therefore at this juncture we don't have any knowledge of exactly what his research uncovered. Yeah, Mark?
New subject, Liberia. What policy or military parameters will guide the U.S. Marines on those ships when the Marines get off of Liberia this weekend? Will those Marines, for example, go ashore and do medical assistance in town? Will they go ashore to do convoy patrols? Will they only go ashore if there is a threat against the embassy? What are the generic policy parameters?
At this point, let me kind of recap where we are. We still have the lift capability, helicopters and some fixed-wing aircraft located at Freetown in Sierra Leone and at Dakar. For the most part, the evacuation of non-official Americans and third country nationals from Liberia is completed. And I'd just like to point out that that effort included 68 helicopter missions. We airlifted a total of 1,826 persons, and of that number, 328 were Americans. I think it's also noteworthy, by the way, that all of the Americans and to my knowledge, all of the third country nationals left without injury. As far as I know, they were never threatened. And so we're very pleased with the way that the evacuation took place. Now, you're correct in pointing out that we have an amphibious ready group which had deployed to the Mediterranean some months ago, which has been ordered to take up a position off Liberia, and it's presently in the Atlantic steaming in that direction. Expect it to arrive there sometime between the 20th and the 22nd. And the purpose of that amphibious ready group will have to do with the security of the official Americans who are still left in Monrovia. I think everybody is aware that the decision has been made to leave the embassy there in Monrovia, that is, the American embassy, open. And there are still, I believe it's 18 embassy personnel who are working there. So the first mission of the amphibious ready group personnel will be to ensure the security of the embassy. The second part of the mission will have to do with the evacuation of Americans and others from Monrovia should it become necessary to have what's called an ordered departure. We're not there. Certainly at this point, it appears that there are some hopeful signs, but there is still a lot of turmoil, looting, lawlessness that is going on in Monrovia. And lastly, with the amphibious ready group in place, there will be a capability to provide some humanitarian assistance to the extent that ready group is capable, should a decision be made at some time in the future that that's appropriate. So that'll give you kind of a rundown on what we see the ships of the Guam amphibious ready group doing. Yes, Steve, did you have a question?
Along the same lines, if you only have 18 U.S. personnel left at the embassy and all, it would seem that the ARG would not be necessary except for a humanitarian mission. Don't you have enough left and everything to take care of the Americans that remain?
Well, there may be a shift of the helicopter assets that are up in Sierra Leone at Freetown after the ARG arrives on the scene. So it's not necessarily that we're adding to the capabilities, but kind of shifting around assets so that the unit that first arrived on the scene may be able to redeploy.
Could you just review, when is that, are the ships scheduled to arrive? And
Well, they're actually not going to arrive as a group. My understanding is that the first ships will get there as early as perhaps even very late on the 19th, but sometime the 20th, and then other ships in that group will arrive there certainly by the 22nd. We've got 5 ships that are involved in it, the largest of which is USS Guam.
how many Marines?
The number of Marines is about 1,500, as I recall.
Could I go back to the Gulf War illness for just a moment?
Sure.
Didn't the Pentagon, hasn't the Pentagon explored this area of possible research of this possible combined effect of vaccines and drugs given to the troops? And what have studies up to this point that the Pentagon has done, what have they shown?
Well, we started ours in October of 1994. Again, what this was a study to look at the interactions between certain drugs and compounds that were used by troops during the Persian Gulf War. It's a $12 million collaborative effort involving Departments of Defense, Veterans Affairs, Health and Human Services. There have been some preliminary studies that have been done on this. Because the dosage level in this kind of research generally is far in excess of the dosages that would be given to humans. For the most part, at this juncture, it's been impossible to say that that it would necessarily have implications in humans. But I think that that as a result of that, there is some further research that is underway. Now, Jim Turner in DDI has more details on this, and if anybody is interested in going into it in greater depth, he's very happy to help you on that. I would like to correct one other thing on the last subject that we discussed. The number of Marines on the Guam ARG is 1,300, vice the number that I used. Okay, anything else? All right, we will conclude this portion of the brief.